Good evening, welcome back to Poetry Love Buzz. It is I, ZM Wise, and here I am with another home recording just for you. It was January of 2017 when this series of unfortunate events occurred. This weird Lovecraftian saga of grotesque torment happened. Mostly in my sleep. Did you notice how I said mostly? Well, that's because during the last chapter of said saga, I was awake. Before I delve into these nightmarish tales, a little disclaimer for those of you who are watching and are either hardcore skeptics, hardcore rationalists, or people who live a purely logical life. If any of these apply to you, I urge you calmly but sincerely turn off this video right now, because it's not going to make sense to you. Please note, I'm not belittling you in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying it might be a waste of your time, because what you're about to hear is out of the ordinary, at least towards the end. Now then, on to the main event. I will give you two examples of nightmares. It started off with a sequence of nightmares. I had one maybe every 3 nights, something along those lines. And they kept growing increasingly worse each time. It was as if some demented horror fiction writer was concocting these tales in my head. And they were too vivid for me. Too vivid for me, someone who's involved in the arts, someone who thrives on detail. And I noticed that they were all just a part of one large storyline, although some were standalone nightmares. So allow me to explain. For one of them, I was standing on the edge of a cliff. I had no idea what mountain I was on. All I know was that it was breathtaking and it was beautiful as I was overlooking this cloud-laden wilderness, if you will. I was enjoying peace, serenity. All of a sudden, I heard a whooshing of wings. I had no idea what direction it was coming from. I mean, considering the level I was at, and considering the spaces between mountains, it was quite the echo, and it was amplified to boot. Up rose this very odd-looking goblin that was the size of a raccoon. And its wings were tattered, the armor it was wearing was rusted, and the sword it was wielding was as thin as a toothpick. I just stared at it. It stared at me. It smiled, baring its rotten teeth. Worst set of chompers I've ever seen in my entire life. And I asked what it wanted. And it grinned even more and said to me in this voice, "We're coming for you." And it began to laugh hysterically. And then I woke up, perspiring like crazy. After the second or third nightmare, I began to pay close attention to the underlying message. As I said, it was a part of one huge plot. During another one, I was at the foot of my bed when I heard a familiar meow. It was my cat, Thomas, who had passed 4 years prior to this nightmare. I say cat, but I lovingly call him my son. Really was a son to me. And more human than any human I've ever known in my entire life. And as I was reaching down to pet him, all of a sudden his fur wafted off his skin. His eyeballs fell out, and in his eye sockets, fire replaced the eyeballs. And I heard his bones cracking. He started to rearrange. Skin started falling off completely until he was this bipedal, demonic-looking cat creature who I no longer recognized as the son I knew. And as soon as I nervously asked, Thomas, is that you? He took one look at me and roared. Just blew my hair back. And in a flash of light and a burst of flames, he disappeared. And I woke up not only perspiring, but now crying hysterically, just sobbing all over the place. It was the worst. Was this to be the last visual memory of this cat who had assisted me through every major triumph and tragedy up till the age of 24? So, after the series of nightmares ended, I thought it was all over. Until I had sleep paralysis. Oh joy, oh rapture was that an experience. For those of you who are psyched about sleep paralysis and are curious about this and who are longing for this experience, give yourselves a good slap in the face. You don't want this. I don't care how courageous you are, how daring you are, how much you study the unexplained. I've been studying the unexplained since I was a child. It's been very high interest, everything from cryptozoology to demonology to the occult to UFOs to everything in between. You don't want this. It's awful. You are completely helpless. You are laying completely vulnerable. And people who suffer through paralysis endure this every single day, even in waking, and which technically you are awake during this. So I saw one of three figures. They are the Shadow Man, the old hag, and the figure that slightly resembles a gray extraterrestrial. I saw the Shadow Man. Sometimes he'll have yellow eyes, sometimes he'll have red eyes, sometimes he'll have no eyes whatsoever. Mine had red eyes. That was a terrible sign in of itself. So, just stood in the corner, watching me, its red eyes glowing, my heart rate elevated like crazy, and then, like in a nightmare, because it has all the power in the world, this entity zoomed forward just like that in the blink of an eye. And it said to me, I say it because these entities bear no gender. I don't care. I don't care what others think. In my opinion, they bear no gender. They are non-human. And it said to me in this pitch, in this tone, I'll never forget this, I'm gonna fucking kill you. Not the easiest sentence in the world to absorb. Not the easiest set of words to swallow. So, all I could do to combat this thing, which was inches away from my face, was close my eyes as tight as possible. I was thankful that I had at least some control. And I wanted to come up with some sort of witty retort, fight fire with comedy. I mean, it worked for Dante. Anyway, so moments passed and it was gone. I could finally move my limbs once more. And big shocker, couldn't fall asleep for the rest of the night. So then I thought it was all over. Until this happened. It seemed too good to be true, to be a nightmare. I never really feel certain pokes and prods. I never have night terrors. But I was in the restroom, just looking at myself. I don't know how I ended up in there. All of a sudden, something didn't feel right. So I tried to escape the restroom, and it slammed shut on its own. I was frightened as ever. All of a sudden, I felt this stabbing in my back, in the middle of my spine, and these pinpricks. It was almost as if something was climbing into me. It was wearing me like a suit. Then I remembered. Somebody once gave me the perfect analogy of demonic possession. The reason why possessed people move so awkwardly, why they speak with these slurred tongues, is because a demon is learning how to use your body. It's like an infant. It's learning how to walk, how to talk in your body. And I felt that something was taking me over. I looked at myself in the mirror. I started to become hunched over, disfigured. My hands were moving so awkwardly like this, and I was sounding something like and I was trying to form words, and everything hurt. Everything just hurt. It felt so dark. It was the worst. But I fought, and I fought, and somehow I ran from the restroom to my bedroom, and I woke up, and I refuse to believe that this was a nightmare. I just can't. I've had an ongoing dispute with myself about this, because I've been skeptical about the fact that, can a person fight off a demon on their own? Was this even a demon? Either way, I'm pretty sure this was a test of my current state of being in life. And by golly, I'd like to think I passed. After that, after those 9 circles of hell, of my own hell, facing myself was difficult. Seeing myself in the mirror like that was crazy. Out of the research I've done, I found no proven evidence that a person can fight off a demon on their own. So, in the comments section, you tell me, what the hell do you think that was? Like I said, for me, I'm convinced it was either a demon. I think I'm definitely leaning towards that option, or it could have been a prelude to something much darker, something that I rid myself of just in time. In the comments section as well, tell me about your experiences with nightmare sequences, sleep paralysis, and maybe temporary demonic possession. Why the hell is this video on my channel? Well, I'll tell you. It does relate to the arts in the sense that I wrote a chapbook of poems detailing each and every one of the nightmares, as well as my sleep paralysis experience and my temporary demonic possession. And then I kept them and rewrote them all as songs. And said to myself, it would make a hell of a rock opera. Everything. And it turned out pretty well. So the chapbook hasn't been released. I haven't found anybody who would accept it for publication just yet. But mark my words, I will someday. But anyway, thank you for your time. Poetry lives. Long live the arts.